this.
Okay, it is 7 o'clock, so I'll call this meeting of the Historic Landmark Board for June 24th, 2020 into order. Roll call, please, sir.
Matthew Bell,
Here.
James Browning, absent. Gargi Dattgupta, present. Linda Grabeel,
Here.
Karen Hardy,
Here.
Mary Oswell,
Here.
Tennille Wood,
Here.
and Anna Lesky.
Here.
Very good. And Anna Lesky, with James being absent, will be in a voting capacity.
Okay, first order of business is to consideration of the minutes of last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes, or are there any concerns of the minutes?
This is Anna. I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second for approving the minutes of last meeting?
I
This
second.
is Tennille. I second.
Thank you. Motion to approve consideration of the minutes is moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed. We have I believe, an addendum, a motion. James Browning has resigned the board, and I believe we need to put through a motion to accept his resignation. Is that a roll call vote, or is that specifically just something to be read in?
I would do a roll call vote.
Roll call vote? Okay.
Matthew Bell,
Yes, I approve.
Gargi Dattgupta, Gargi, I'm not hearing you, so if you could either confirm or come on camera and give me a thumbs up or down.
I approve.
Very good. Linda Grabeel,
Yes, I approve.
Karen Hardy,
I approve.
Mary Oswell,
I approve.
Tennille Wood,
Approve.
and Anna Lesky.
I approve.
That's unanimous.
Okay, unanimous consent. Mr. Browning has officially resigned from the board, historic board, landmark board. Moving on, I suppose, to, I guess, new business would be a continuation of resolution 2020-01. And I believe we go to the presentation next, sir. Sir.
This presentation resumes the discussion that was tabled from the previous meeting of the Historic Westminster Landmark Board, which took place on February 26, 2020. As a refresher, the City of Westminster has entered into a partnership with a private contractor who wishes to lease the 3915 West 73rd Street. That's a city-owned property for the purpose of opening a restaurant and pub. Per the Westminster Municipal Code, the Historic Landmark Board is responsible for reviewing alterations other than maintenance and repair to sites that are designated as local historic landmarks. Before work can begin on 3915 West 73rd Avenue, the HLB will need to approve a certificate of historic appropriateness for which we are holding this public hearing. As a reminder, the purpose of this hearing is not to determine whether or not the proposed use of the building is permissible, rather whether or not the proposed alterations qualify for a certificate of historical appropriateness based upon the stipulations identified in the 2006 resolution that designated the building a local historic landmark. The June 24th meeting packet that was distributed to the Historic Landmark Board members and posted to the board's webpage on the City of Westminster's website included an agenda memo briefly outlining the need for a certificate of historical appropriateness for the restaurant project, an application for a certificate of historical appropriateness, renderings of the proposed alterations, the original council resolution designating the property a historic landmark, and a copy of the proposed resolution authorizing the certificate of historic appropriateness. Notice of this public hearing was published in the Westminster Window's June 11th, 2020 edition. Next slide, please. A public notice sign, back one, please. A public notice sign was also posted on the property on June 10th, 2020. This request meets the city's strategic plan goal of beautiful, desirable, safe, and environmentally responsible city by taking steps to preserve and protect the historic features of the community for future generations. This request also demonstrates Westminster's commitment to fostering social, economic, and environmental vitality and cultivating and strengthening a wide array of economic opportunities. As a quick review, these are the criteria listed in Westminster Municipal Code section 111310H through I for determining whether to issue a certificate of historic appropriateness. And they are the effect of the proposed change on the general architectural and/or historic character of the structure or district, the architectural style, arrangement, textures, and materials used on existing and proposed structures and their relation to other structures in the district if applicable, the uniqueness of the structure and how it ties in with the history of the area, the size of the structure, its setbacks, its site, location, and the appropriateness thereof when compared to existing nearby structures and the site. The effects of the proposed work in creating, changing, destroying, or otherwise affecting the exterior architectural features of the structure upon which such work is done. The effect of the proposed work on the protection, enhancement, perpetuation, and the use of the structure, area, or district. The condition of existing improvements and whether they are a hazard to the public health or safety. The economic viability of maintaining the structure or area as is. Whether the property shall be used for its historic purpose or be placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building and its site and environment. Whether the historic character of a property is being retained and preserved, and visual compatibility with designated historic structures located on the property in terms of design, finish, material, scale, mass, and height. When the subject site is within a historic landmark district, the board must also find that the proposed development is visually compatible with the development on adjacent properties. For the purpose of this chapter, the term compatible shall mean consistent with, harmonious with, and/or enhances the mixture of complementary architectural styles, either of the architecture of an individual structure or the character of the surrounding structures. Next, we focus on the limitations on alterations, and these are the criteria that apply. Distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property shall be preserved. The removal or alteration of any historic material or distinctive features shall be avoided when possible. Deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced when possible. When the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. Replacement of missing features shall be substantiated by documentary, physical, or pictorial evidence. Chemical or physical treatments, such as sandblasting, that did cause damage to historic materials shall not be used. The surface cleaning of structures, if appropriate, shall be undertaken using the gentlest means possible. Significant archaeological resources affected by a project shall be protected and preserved. If such resources must be disturbed, mitigation measures shall be undertaken. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property and shall be undertaken in such a manner that, if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic landmark and its environment would be unimpaired. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. All historic or contributing buildings, structures, and sites shall be recognized as products of their own time and place. Changes that may have taken place in the course of time are evidence of the history and development of a building, structure, site, or environment. These changes may have acquired significance in their own right and shall be retained and preserved. Alterations that have no historical basis, and that seek to create an earlier or non-local appearance shall be discouraged. Every reasonable effort shall be made to provide a compatible use for a property that requires minimal alteration to the defining characteristics as identified in the application for designation, or the building, structure, or site and its environment, or to use property for its originally intended purpose. And this is just an overhead shot of the property showing the location of 3915 West 73rd Avenue. To the left is the Westminster Grange, and to the right is the historic Westminster Sculpture Park, which is owned by the City of Westminster. This historic photo dates to when the property housed the Rodeo Supermarket. While this photo is from approximately 1966, the property was built in 1953 and operated as a grocery store until the early 1970s. The building served as an office building for many years until it was acquired by the city in 2004. The property was designated a local historic landmark by Westminster City Council in 2006. Between 2009 and 2018, the property was leased to the South Westminster Arts Group. The property has been vacant since June of 2018. In 2008, the Colorado State Historical Fund awarded $79,165 to the City of Westminster to restore the supermarket facade. The facelift was completed in 2009, and these photos are showing on the left before and on the right after. Here we have a rendering of the exterior. These are the proposed alterations. The southern brick facade, including the stepped parapet, the barrel roof, and the large windows and doors on the south side will remain intact. All items required to be preserved in the 2006 resolution by City Council designating the property a local historic landmark. And here are the south and east elevations. Noteworthy are the proposed changes to the east elevation. These changes were submitted to the State Historical Fund for review and received no objections. Since the last meeting of the Historic Landmark Board, a developer responded to concerns that arose during the February 26th meeting of the board regarding the south elevation, and the design has been modified to use transparent glass, in other words, replacing the same material currently installed. This is the west and north elevations. In addition to that western elevation is a cooler, which will be screened for the purpose of aesthetics. That is not a permanent structure. And because the product was funded by the Colorado State Historical Fund, the property is subject to a 20-year covenant which expires in 2029, during which time all changes to the property must be approved by the state. This email documents the required approval. It's from Corbin Pugh. He is the Property Protections Coordinator for History Colorado. Now, this is where we're going to have to briefly step away from the project to show you a video presentation. This is was requested by the board during our last meeting in February, and we're happy to provide this interior vision. As we watch this, I will point out that the Historic Landmark Board is concerned with the preservations of the elements protected by the 2006 resolution. But nonetheless, because the board expressed curiosity regarding the interior design of the project, the developer provided this animation. I'm sorry, there's no sound. I could hum, but I don't think anybody wants that. That completes that, and we come to the part of the staff recommendation. Obviously, we recommended holding this public hearing. And staff also recommends that the Historic Landmark Board approve the certificate of historic appropriateness for 3915 West 92nd Avenue. This recommendation is based on the finding that the public hearing criteria set forth in section 1113.7 of the Westminster Municipal Code have been met, and a finding that in determining whether to issue the certificate of historic appropriateness, the board considered the criteria outlined in sections 11, 13, 10, H, subsections 1 through 11 of the Westminster Municipal Code. And that completes the staff presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Newman. I believe next I call on the applicant to present any additional clarification necessary or to state their case. Is there anything more from the applicant?
Hi, Stephanie Trawler, Business Development Manager and the Project Manager for this project. Thank you again, Board, for listening to the topic. As you could tell by the presentation, the tenant, the leasee, and the city definitely took your cues and listened to the feedback from the community about the windows and made those adjustments, and also altered the orientation of the gelato bar. So I'm here to provide any clarity to the board and leave it to you for questions of me.
Thank you very much. And to the board, any questions for applicant? I believe you can unmute and speak at will. I believe. Hearing none, no questions.
Wait.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello.
I have a question. This is Linda.
I have Ms. Linda Graybill. Go ahead.
I'm wondering if the pergola treatment on the east side of the building is going to be functional, since there won't be any sun shining on that side per se, or is it just cosmetic?
It's cosmetic, but it is. Sorry, there is some feedback. This is Stephanie. It is cosmetic, and it is not a permanent fixture.
Gargi, you have a comment.
Yes, I want to say that I appreciate all the work put in by the team, because all the concerns that they raised about the south facade have been addressed. The overhead door is on. We were concerned that the counter hits the glazing and you don't get that impact, and that's the historically significant facade. So I appreciate the work and what they've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, comments or questions for the applicant? Ms. Hardy, Karen Hardy, go ahead.
I agree with what Gargi had to say.
Okay, Anna Lesky.
Same, I think it looks great. And I appreciate the changes and for them taking it to heart.
Fantastic. Anybody else? Okay, well, I agree. They looks wonderful to me. Next, we go to testimony from the audience in favor of the request. Any testimony from the audience in favor?
I would like to read into the public record an email that was received at the in the Historic Landmark Board mailbox. That was the address posted as part of our noticing. And the message reads as follows. This is from Chris Meschuk, whose address is 7331 Orchard Court in Westminster. And Chris shares, as a directly adjacent property owner, I fully support the certificate of historic appropriateness for the rodeo market at 3915 73rd Avenue. I believe the application meets the criteria in the Westminster Municipal Code and appropriately focuses exterior alterations to subordinate facades of the building. The east facade modifications for outdoor seating and the roll-up doors were something contemplated for many years, and our evolution, while not ideal, are appropriately located, recognizing that the building does not have a back in the classic sense, as it is wrapped around by the public park. I believe the screening proposed on the southwestmost cooler facing 73rd is important. Thanks for your service on the board, Chris Meschuk.
Thank you. Is that all for the in favor of testimony?
That was the only communication received by the noon deadline.
Okay.
However, I believe that if we bring council on to this call, there is another.
Yeah, so to clarify, this was posted for public comment on our website and the public notice that we would receive emails or voicemails or signing up to speak by noon today. My understanding from Mr. Newman is that that was the only thing received by noon today. However, we have been notified that there's at least one person, Mr. Shea, that would like to speak. I don't know for or against on this. That was received after the noon deadline of about 3 o'clock after. As council, I would encourage the board to attempt to allow any other further testimony from the public for this, if you find it in your capability and time for this. So that would be my recommendation, my legal advice, is to try and accommodate this if possible.
Fantastic. I will ask the board, does everybody agree we can find time to allow for comment?
Do we need a motion?
Do we need a motion?
No,
okay.
This can be by consent.
Okay. If anyone does not agree, speak up. Is anyone does not agree? Okay. The procedure says that I should go neutral and then negative. I think in these circumstances, we'll just open it up to whatever the public would like to say.
Gary, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, my name is Gary Shea. I do the day-to-day management, the daily management of the Westminster Grange Hall, 3935 West 73rd Avenue. We are a neighbor directly to the west of the proposed project here, and are probably the only neighbor that's directly impacted by this. I have a concern tonight. I just received a call when the meeting started from Bev Capra. She was in attendance at the February meeting, and I know that there were several others that wanted to participate this evening, but just don't have the wherewithal, whether it's computer capabilities, internet, on and on. So I doubt you might know, Rich, if she made it onto the webinar here.
I am not showing Bev's name in the list of people listening in.
Okay, all right. She did try to call. She said she received, I think, somebody's voicemail, so wasn't able to access that way. So very unfortunate that that we're moving, well, that we're in these times and that we're moving forward. I think this makes it very difficult to have a good public hearing in a virtual format. That being said, I'm referring to, I believe it's about the 7th page in the online packet. And I don't know if the board has that in front of them. It talks about number 10, the criteria for consideration of the certificate. If you could let me know when they've got that access to that.
I believe I have got my document in the right position. Everyone else?
Okay, let me know when you'd like me to proceed.
I'm showing that several of the panelists have said yes, they have access to it. I think it's reasonable to proceed.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I just said yes, sir. Please go.
Okay, under the criteria, this would be under item number 3. The answer that the applicant put down is no new structures are proposed. And also, to make it brief, under criteria number 4, size of the structures, the applicant responded no new structures. Now I'd like to have the board refer to, I think it was site or a site, the overview plan for the property in the packet. And if you could let me know when you're ready.
I believe we're ready.
Okay, on that A site, if you look to the, it would be the left-hand side of the main building there. There are two structures there. Both of them are labeled as new freezer / cooler, 2 structures there. So in the criteria here, the applicant has stated that there's no new structures, but in fact, there's 2 new structures that are in that courtyard there. And I would ask the board to not approve this as written this evening for this certificate. And just as a side note, I toured around the majority of restaurants in South Westminster, and none of those restaurants have coolers similar to this outside of the building. Everything is contained within the building. And I believe that's all that I have comment-wise. But again, I would ask you not to approve this as submitted this evening. Thank you.
Touche. I see Lindsay Smith and Patricia McGuire both would like to speak. I guess that would be in rebuttal.
And I would just say that if we could please have some legal counsel just to make sure that we don't, I don't know the process for additional speakers because Mr. Shea was the only one who communicated. So I just want to make sure, Ron, we're okay.
Yeah, it's up to the board to decide this, but if there are other people that are present at this hearing from the public that would like to be heard on this particular matter, again, I would encourage this board to listen to those thoughts. My understanding from Mr. Newman is that there have been numerous voicemails left after the noon deadline. Because of the logistics of that, I would advise that those not be considered as it's just too much to deal with both emails and voicemails. However, if people are present at this meeting and took the time to come to this, I would encourage you to listen to anything that they may want to say in favor or against or in neutral.
And Ron, if I may be specific, just of course clarifying that our council liaison to this board is also present and would like to speak.
Yes, I would just advise Councilmember Smith that you will be, depending on the recommendation of this board, you will be voting on the ultimate conclusion of this in City Council. So would advise, there are some kind of ramifications of participation on this, but I think Mr. Frankel and Kristen from my office have advised you of those as well. So I just wanted to repeat that and give that heads up.
And also, before we jump to that, I know that board member Anna Lesky has a question and comment.
Never mind, actually. Sorry about that.
Okay. I wasn't aware if these were members of the public or in another capacity. Is Patricia McGuire, is that a member of the public?
That is, yes.
Okay. Does the board agree that we have time to hear from Ms. McGuire? Okay. Hearing no concerns, I'll go ahead and allow Ms. Patricia McGuire.
Hi, Ms. McGuire. Can you speak?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can. Please proceed.
All right. Thank you very much. I just have a couple of questions. I don't know if I missed something when you were showing the video of the interior, but where the heck are the kitchens?
I believe we go back to the applicant to answer that question.
Yeah, it's
Sure. This is Stephanie. Thank you for your question, Patricia. They're towards the back. You don't see all of the equipment in there yet because it's still being considered. So, but it's in the back towards with one of those white rooms.
Okay, so it's in one of the empty rooms in the drawing, in the animation. Okay.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
then also, I have another question. The structure that's on the east of the building will be taking up quite a bit of the sculpture park that's there on the east side of the building. Am I wrong, or will that be correct?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. There is no structure on the east side. Everything there is existing, like the patio, that's existing.
Okay. Then I'm remembering the sculpture park wrong. Okay. All right. That is what I needed to know.
Thank you.
Oh, one more question. I'm so sorry. You referred, or someone referred to you did, Stephanie, to the gelato bar. Is that where the coffee shop is going? Is that what it's being called now, the gelato bar?
They'll be serving gelato and coffee. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGuire. Is there anyone else, members of the public with?
Hearing no other objections, if I may just intercede as staff liaison, I'm just going to go through the list and unmute those and ask those that wish to speak if they would like to offer comments. Is that acceptable to the board?
I accept. I'll let the rest of the board speak. Looks like it's acceptable to the board.
So I want to reach out to our counselor, Lindsay Smith. Lindsay, if you would like to offer comments, I certainly want to give you that opportunity. Can you weigh in?
Well, I'm not here to offer comments. I just have a quick question to our city attorney. And with this, I know that we as a council have worked through the public hearing process. Do we feel comfortable enough that we've had comment after the fact? I know that we put in a deadline, but do we feel confident enough that we are gathering all of the information and data needed for the Historic Landmark Board to make a well-rounded decision in this? Is this something that the city, and might even be a question to Stephanie, but is this something that could be postponed again to the later date to where we would meet in person and have that public hearing process where everyone can participate? That's just my question, because I hearing that there's some voicemails and emails out there that may not have gotten into the packet is a little concerning.
I would answer that I think it's always capable for a board to continue something. And I think that it's a possibility. There was the proper posting and there was the time given to make these comments.
Sure.
I don't know why they were made after the fact. If they did have knowledge, I don't know the basis for that. However, I also think that it could be something that pops up if we continue it again, that things come in after the deadline to be able to comment. But allowing people to speak at this hearing, knowing that there was a hearing, I think was a way to kind of alleviate that. So I think it's always a possibility. I know that we have to hold the hearing not less than 30 days and not more than 60 days. And I know that it has been continued once, and there's always that capability, but that's up to the board, I think, to decide if they want to postpone to get those comments in as well. This
And
hearing,
Ron, I just want to be clear. Any reference to voicemails that may have come through immediately before this meeting, we have no way of knowing whether or not those are related to the business at hand.
okay. Yeah, so I think the idea is Rich has voicemails, but he doesn't know if they're related to this particular hearing itself. I would advise that this board is here to recommend giving this designation, and it's up to City Council to approve that. So there will still also be another opportunity for the public to be heard before this does go into effect as well. But again, this board can decide if they want to continue it to have more public input.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. That makes sense. I just know that as a council, we've talked at length about this. And so I want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence and making sure that, you know, we're still at a safer at home, stay at home scenario. And so there may be people that may not have seen the posting, and we're all in a weird situation here. So I just wanted to get that out there and see what options we have. So I thank you for that.
I agree 100% with you, Councillor, that it is a very different time and different ways to participate now.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilwoman. We now go to, if there's no more public comment, we get to hear final comments from the applicant. If there are, oh, I'm sorry.
If I may, we still have a few attendees that we should give the opportunity to speak if that is the board's will. I would go to Jason Murray, who's next. Is that permissible to the board?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Hi, welcome to the hearing, Mr. Murray.
I don't have any comments. I'm just listening.
Okay, thank you. And I would also invite Erica Dubik. I know she is with us tonight. Erica, do you have any comments?
No, I do not.
So seeing no other names in the attendees, we've given the opportunity to everybody present to speak.
Great. And I, again, very much appreciate everybody's bearing with us during these times. So that brings us to the final comments or rebuttal by the applicant. Is there anything else to say?
No, just that I think that I'd like to have a decision in a timely manner as more steps remain that are dependent on tonight's decision. So if I could get a decision, I would appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Yep. Yes.
Since we are in this weird time of visual or video conferencing, I know that there has been some comments made in the chat function that is visible only to the participants, the staff. We would like to make anything that needs to be said or should be said should be done on the record. This typically would be that discussion that the board would have with each other. I know that there have been comments regarding what you are supposed to be looking at, what's permanent, what's not permanent. So I'd ask that those people, I think Tennille Wood and Gargi, and some others have made comments in that chat. If we could just put those on the record on this, and you can read your question if you want, or you can read your comment if you want, but just so we have a complete record that the public is aware of as well.
Sorry, that is a fantastic point, Mr. Aguila. Thank you very much. Any board members who would like to speak or read their comments on the record, please do so.
Hi, this is Linda. And I did not notice before until these drawings that the name of this establishment is Old with an E, Westminster. Is this a done deal, or are we going to refer back to Historic Westminster? I was just curious about that because we will be referring to this building in this fashion.
Sure. Hi, Linda. This is Stephanie. I will answer you. So, you know, the city doesn't have jurisdiction on what a business can name their business, right? So, the applicant, we have talked about it in the past. This is a working name. If it really causes a lot of harm, they can change it, but this is the name that they chose, and we don't really have the authority to tell them otherwise.
This is Gargi. I can speak to my comments that I made. A couple of things. I appreciate the comments that came through from the Grange, from Gary Shea. Thank you, Gary. The board is obviously the Historic Landmark Board, so a couple of notes that I wanted to make to your concerns. Number one is the fact that when we are talking structure, freezers and coolers are not considered structures, they are equipment. So we cannot be speaking to the structure. The second piece is that we are tasked with reviewing historical appropriateness. We may have opinions and desires regarding the design. I especially do, being an architect, but that is not my job. So I have no authority to be speaking to that concern in this current role. So we have to look at what they are proposing in terms of how it impacts the historic significance. And from my understanding, at the last meeting, we talked about this being the south facade. And that certainly they have addressed all the concerns regarding the overhead bay door, garage door, as well as keeping the facade free and clear of the counters. Thank you.
This is Tennille Wood, and I will also just put my the comments that I had typed on record. And that is that I was looking back at the original designation of the Rodeo Supermarket as a local historic landmark. I believe that's page 22. I would have to look in the full packet again. But specifically, it refers to the features that should be preserved. And in my opinion, that's what this board needs to be looking at. So that would include the stepped parapet facade and the original brick facade and the barrel vault roof line. So the other structures or the other aspects of the building that are not on that south facade or related to the roof line aren't in our purview as the board and as it designates to this specific historic landmark. So those were just my comments that I was sharing in the chat box with the board.
Were there any other comments by the board? Hearing none. Any final comments from city staff?
I think I'm fine with where things stand right now. So again, appreciate your time and consideration, and here for any questions.
Okay, then we move on to closing the public hearing. And I'd like to request a motion from the board. Would anyone like to make a motion?
This is Tennille. I motion that we vote.
And do I have a second on the motion to vote?
Second from Karen.
Okay.
Fantastic. Is there any further discussion on the motion to vote from the rest of the board? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Matthew Bell.
I vote yes.
Gargi Dutt-Gupta.
I vote yes.
Linda Grabio.
Yes.
Karen Hardy.
I vote yes.
Mary Oswell.
I vote yes.
Tennille Wood.
I vote yes.
And Anna Leske.
Yes.
The resolution, the vote passes unanimously.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much.
May I ask Ron a procedural question?
Yep, go ahead.
Ron, is that vote sufficient to pass the resolution, or do we need to read the resolution into the record?
No, so that motion was just to agree to actually vote on the resolution.
So will we read the resolution at this point?
Yes, you'd read the resolution and there need to be a motion to approve or deny that resolution.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification.
Do I read that or do you, Rich?
It could be either. I'm happy to read it for you since I have it in front of me.
Sure, go for it. Thank you.
It's a Historic Landmark Board Resolution number 2020-01, a resolution authorizing a certificate of historic appropriateness for conversion of existing building into a restaurant/pub. Whereas 3915 West 73rd Avenue, Adams County, Westminster, Colorado was designated a local historic landmark in 2006. And whereas the city of Westminster has partnered with the developer to convert the existing building into a restaurant pub. And whereas the Westminster Municipal Code Section 111310, Section A requires a certificate of historic appropriateness to be approved by the Historic Landmark Board for any work other than maintenance and repair and for which a building permit is required on a property subject to a historic designation. And whereas the proposed alterations will maintain and preserve the historic character of the property, and whereas the board has considered the criteria set forth in Westminster Municipal Code Section 111310, Section H, and found compliance with Section 111310H, subsections 1 through 11 as applicable, and whereas the board is required to hold a notice public hearing pursuant to Section 1113.7 of the Westminster Municipal Code, now therefore the Historic Landmark Board of the City of Westminster resolves that a certificate of historic appropriateness be approved for the conversion of 3915 West 73rd Avenue to a restaurant/pub, passed and adopted this 24th day of June 2020. The Westminster Historic Landmark Board signed. Matthew Bell, Interim Board Chair.
So now we would just need a motion to approve that resolution as read in or to deny that motion as read in.
Okay, is there a motion by the board?
I recommend that I move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness.
Do I have a
This is
second?
Gargia, seconded.
Seconded. The motion to approve the resolution number 2020-01 is approved.
We'll have to do a roll call for that one.
Oh, I
We
see.
have a motion and a second. We just need the roll call vote.
Matthew
Gotcha.
Bell,
Yes.
Gargi Gupta.
Yes.
Sorry, it's fireworks over here. Linda Grabio.
Yes.
I'm all right. Karen Hardy.
Yes.
Mary Oswell.
Yes.
Tennille Wood.
Yes.
And Anna Lesky.
Yes.
The resolution passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I guess that concludes new business. And we move on to consideration of, let me pull this up, consideration of old business. Updates on historic properties. Discussion of 2020 goals from boards and commissions onboarding session. Historic marker program inclusive awareness campaign.
All right. I'm going to apologize in advance because there are fireworks outside my door, apparently. But we wanted to, board members should have in front of them a updated list of the city-owned historic properties. And I just want to draw your attention to the updates that are listed in red, as we typically do at these meetings. Since the time that this packet was posted, we have another update regarding the Semper Allison Farm, and that is that installation is imminent. We're no longer waiting for a date. So that will proceed shortly. That's already been authorized. I just want you guys to know that we were kind of in a holding pattern because of weather and some other things, but that is actually taking place this week, in fact. And the only other update would be for the Wesley Chapel Cemetery on the northeast corner of 120th Avenue and Huron Street. As you know, we've been having some phased improvements on that property. Fencing and the pillars are complete now. And unfortunately, the remaining improvements, which would be the parking area, informational signage, trees, and irrigation, are temporarily on hold just due to the COVID-19 budgetary constraints. Those are temporarily suspended. And those are the only updates I have to report for the city of historic properties.
Any discussion from the board? Questions? Hearing none. Moving on to the the goals from boards and commissions onboarding session, historic marker program.
Yes, I don't know in the interest of time how deep we want to get into this. I'm certainly willing to discuss it at the next meeting. We still have 2 more meetings this year, of course. But I know Linda was able to provide, and I apologize, Linda, I know you sent it today and I haven't had a chance to look at it, but she was able to find a listing of the markers that have already been created. Can you, and install the list? Is that, can you just join us and to discuss that a little bit, Linda? Linda, are you still there? We may be having technical issues with Linda's feed. Are you able to hear us, Matt? Are you able to hear?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking to him, Matt.
Yeah, it looks like she's muted.
Let's see here.
Linda Graybiel?
Yeah, I just sent her an unmute request. Linda, there you go. Can you hear us?
Okay, I can't see you. I don't have my screen right now. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you just give us an update on what the information you were able to find regarding the progress that had been made regarding these markers?
Right. So this is a listing of all 24 markers. They've all been casted in bronze, and most, I think all but 3 or 4 have been installed as noted on the document. I apologize in advance. My techie daughter has reconfigured my computer and all the documents were on hold. So I'm having a hard time getting to them. But and I have a whole history of this historic marker program, but in the original downtown area of Westminster, you'll see a lot of them embedded in the sidewalks. So this is where we are so far, as far as those bronze markers. So everyone got it emailed to them. One email got sent back to me, but yeah.
If I may, if it pleases the board, what I would propose is that if you allow me to again scan everything into a single document and make sure that everybody has ample time to review it, and then maybe we revisit this at the next meeting if it so pleases the board.
It's good with me.
Good with me.
Okay.
Seems like the board is on board.
Yeah, I would just think it'd be more helpful for us to have time to fully look at that list and the markers, and then decide, what a path forward is. And frankly, I would have to do a little bit of research to see what budget, if any, would exist for creating the new ones, because I'm sure we've had a few additions to those. Certainly not least the Presbyterian Church.
It was, am I still on? I can't get to my control board.
You are.
Okay. The criteria for those markers had very little to do with landmarking per se. It could, but obviously Ma Barker was never landmarked. She was a murderess. And so we didn't landmark Ma Barker, but she has a historic marker. So as you read through it, consider those kinds of things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, makes sense to me.
So you're really it's up to the landmark board's discretion. I am not sure all the money was spent. on the installation, there was quite a bit of money left over for the installation, and there were still like 4 markers left to install. So that's something to research as well.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for finding those files and for bringing them forward so that we can revisit it and take care of that. I think that's very helpful. So thank you so much, Linda.
You're welcome.
And Mary, it appears Mary Oswald has a question for you mute. Mary?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that. My question with respect to this is, as Linda said, some of these historic markers have nothing to do with our job as a landmarking board, and that doesn't mean that history doesn't exist in both of those two places. But the other side of this to me is we can have signage on things that are owned by the city of Westminster. And that's the other side that I think it's really important here, is that when we own a property, we make sure that we notify it as landmarked as well, because we have a sign department. And yes, it may take time for a structure or a place to get a new sign, but that's the other part of why this discussion I think is important. The markers in the ground are lovely, but they're not visible unless you walk right across them. And to me, that means that we're not doing a very good job of getting the message out. So I think we have sort of two things here, and so I'd like to know more about both the work that Linda brought forward, and also where the lack is on our side of things that are represented in her list as well. So that's my comment.
And I agree with Mary. This was a grant given through and to the Historic Landmark Board originally. So that's where the budget area of it went.
Okay, great, thanks.
Karen Hardy, question?
Yes, well, actually, it's more of a comment with regard to this. Since these markers aren't necessarily that visible to the general public, as Mary was alluding to, perhaps sometime when we have the time and funding and such, we could prepare a little walking tour brochure that indicated the information that Linda's collected about them and where they all are, so people could actually walk around and look at them.
Yes, and I know that the Westminster Historical Society has the walking tour books. They kind of were done in conjunction with that. And then when I researched the 100th year of Bradburn Boulevard down there, I did, in the brochure I created, show where all the markers were. So we've got a lot of that research done.
Yeah, and I believe the Irving Street Library has those books as well. I know I've checked them out in one of the libraries myself. Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, I suppose we moving on to other business then, conferences, education, other updates.
I do have some information to share with the board. We have had a guest who was actually in the background listening to this meeting, and that was Erica Duvik from the History Colorado Office of Archaeology and Historic Preservation. And I just want to share that we had talked about the national conference that was originally scheduled, the NAPC forum. And unfortunately, that was tabled. That's the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. It's been altered from the original in person, and they're actually doing a virtual conference. And that virtual conference is scheduled for August 3rd through 9th. They're going to be offering a variety of sessions, 2 to 3 sessions per day. And they're, I think Mountain Time, they're running from between 10 and 5. The times listed were, I think, in Eastern Time. So hopefully my math is correct. But anyway, August 3rd through 9th. And they have very graciously offered us 2 positions available to cover it as a scholarship for that. So I wanted to make sure that we put that out there during this meeting. If we have anybody that is interested in attending, 2 people that are would like to take advantage of this educational opportunity. Those dates again would be August 3rd through 9th. And anybody who wants to jump into chat and say yay or nay, I would be glad to take note of that, because I did promise Erica that we would get back to her immediately after this meeting. And let me see if I can ask a clarifying question. Erica, if you're with us, may I ask, is it possible for us to split a registration, or is that limited exclusively to one person? So in other words, one person couldn't do one day and another person another day. I just thought I'd ask since we have you on the line.
That's a good question, and I'm not sure. But you guys are actually welcome to apply for more than the 2 people that you've already applied for. We have plenty of funding available, so we'd be happy to pay for a registration for whoever's interested.
Well, that's a very, very generous offer. I see that Anna Lesky is interested, but she needs to check a few things, and it seems that Mary Oswell is also interested. Do we have anybody else who would like to participate in the National Forum virtually August 3rd through 9th? So then I will send over this information to you hopefully tomorrow, Erica, and we thank you for your generosity. And I think it looks like Gargi is also interested, at least in participating in some capacity. So thank you.
All right, thank you. That's great.
Well, I'll send that list to you with everybody's names and email addresses, and we can get whatever we need to get moving. And I also want to bring to the attention of our board members, there's a variety of CLG training opportunities, certified local government, of course, training opportunities offered. And they're everything from design review critiques, bi-monthly interactive online meetings via Zoom. Those are September, December, and I can type this all up and send it out to the group. I'm not expecting you to, but if you're not receiving these, and I know Kristen used to pass these on to you, I want to make sure that you have these. There are also certified local get-togethers that happen, it looks like monthly, a variety of webinars, things like historic preservation and sustainability, maintaining your historic home, you can't paint that purple, and other preservation myths, evaluating integrity, heritage interpretation, oral history. So just give you some examples. And certainly we should be taking advantage of those as well. So I will get those out to you as soon as I can.
Okay, is there anything else in conferences, education, or other updates? Anybody?
This is Karen. I hope to have my notes from the Saving Places conference from back in February written up and emailed to Rich to share before the next meeting.
Thank you, Karen. That's very nice of you to share that with the other members. I would draw attention to our next meeting, which will be scheduled for Wednesday, August 26th at 7 p.m. And then, of course, our final meeting of the year will be Wednesday, October 28th. And while none of us can say what the future holds, I think it's a pretty safe bet that we likely will be doing one, if not both of those remotely, using this format. And before we were to adjourn, I just want to give a shout out and thank you, a note of appreciation to Matt Williams. He is with the city's IT department, and he is the magician behind the scenes that makes this all look easy. And we know it certainly is not easy. So thank you, Matt.
All right, thank you, Matt. I guess with that being done, I move to adjourn. Or do I call for a motion to adjourn?
You can move if you like.
Okay, I'll move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second? Karen?
Thank you, Karen. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone?
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody opposed to adjourning? Hearing none, this meeting of the Historic Landmark Board is adjourned at 8:10 p.m. Thank you very much.